Good morning from a beautiful new day in Israel, the beginning of a new era in history. People all around the Middle East are celebrating today. If you're online, you'll see it. People in Iran are celebrating, in Syria, in Lebanon. So sit down for a minute. I got a coffee, grab a coffee, and let's talk about how the world has changed. In a period of a week, Israel has completely shifted the balance of power and taken out Hezbollah as an operating force. We understand that the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, has been killed. We don't know for sure. The attack on his compound, where he was supposed to be located, was so intense that we may never find the remains of him. But it certainly seems like he's gone. Now, what does this actually mean for Israel and for the rest of the Middle East? Let's just start with Lebanon for a minute. Lebanon is effectively an occupied country, occupied by Iran. Hezbollah is the forward operating force of Iran on Israel's northern border, and from the Lebanese perspective, it's right throughout the country. They've infiltrated the government, they control the military. They've completely destroyed that country, to the extent that Lebanon is so broke that people are robbing banks to get their own money back, because the banks can't release people's savings. There's no money in the system. The last energy plant in Lebanon shut down a few weeks back. I don't know what they're doing now for energy, and it's a dysfunctional, failed state, thanks to Iran and Hezbollah. No one in the international media seems to recognize that. No one seems to recognize the plight of the Lebanese people under this jihadist organization. What does it mean for Israel? I remember about 10 years ago, a friend of mine, I was living in Australia, and an Australian guy, he had married an Israeli woman. They'd been living in Israel, and they were happy in Israel, but they moved back to Australia. And I asked him one day, why did you move back? He said, with Hezbollah's arsenal of missiles in the north, about 200,000 missiles pointed at Israel, he said, this is never going to end well. He said, I just wanted to get out before it all went crazy. A lot of people thought that people were leaving the country because of that. It was holding Israel back from taking the action it knew it needed to take. Like, for example, operating against Iran's nuclear program. The last thing you want is a nuclear-armed Iran. That's like having a nuclear Hitler regime, Third Reich. Iran set up Hezbollah to destroy Israel in the event that Israel tried to do anything to Iran. Iran's not a very strong military country. It's a paper tiger. Its economy is 80% oil. If you take out its oil facilities, its ports, it dries up. But there was always this threat from the north. Let me show you something about how Israelis dealt with that threat. This is what I had next to my front door to go at a moment's notice. So this is a solar-powered battery pack with big light and USB charge ports, because we expected the electricity grid to be knocked out. This is an AM/FM old school radio. Well, I never use it, but in the event that the electricity grid gets knocked out, the internet gets knocked out. So this is how the government and the municipalities would communicate with you. It's also solar powered, so it can be charged by the sun if there's no electricity. These are two flashlights. The big one is battery powered, because if you've got no electrical grid, you can't recharge it. And the small one is a tactical flashlight, super bright, but USB charged as well. I got a number of flashlights, because lights is what it's all about in the event of an all-out attack. I've got a number of alcohol swabs, gauze, band-aids, etc. This is all what we expected. I mean, to be honest, if we really needed to use these things, we'd be in a really bad position. But this is what Israelis were expecting, to have to live in the bomb shelters for extended periods of time with no electricity. The municipalities were telling us where the water availability spots would be in the event that the water system was knocked out. We were expecting Armageddon. It looks like now that threat has been lifted through the walkie-talkie attack and the pager attack, knocking out the mid-range levels, through the missile strike, the airstrike that took out the high-level commander, now Hassan Nasrallah. And what Israel has revealed, which it knew for a long time, but didn't tell anybody because it didn't want to give away the information that it had, is that Hezbollah had given apartments all throughout southern Lebanon to members of what's called its Radwan force. This is its elite commando force, with the intention to raid Israel. And they'd been paying them to put missiles in one room of these apartments. It could be in the garage or in some bedroom. We've seen pictures coming out of enormous missiles not small little homemade rockets, big precision-guided missiles in people's homes. So that effectively turns them into a non-civilian or military facility, so they're now no longer covered by the Geneva Convention. So today looks like a new day. We don't have that threat from the north, at least it seems that way. Like, we're cautious. We know that it can turn upside down at a moment's notice in this part of the world, but it looks like that's where we're headed, towards a new era of peace. And as an example of the corruption and the weakness at the heart of Western governments and the United Nations, the UN just welcomed the president of Iran to speak at the General Assembly in New York. The Americans gave him a visa. Why would you do that? How could you display such weakness? They have not only attacked your ally Israel constantly for 12 months, they've been attacking your own people. They're attacking another ally of yours, being Saudi Arabia. The Houthis are a forward operating force of Iran, attacking your ally Saudi Arabia and disrupting shipping in the Red Sea, which is disrupting the entire global shipping process, attacking your ships as well, being the United States. And you allow the president to get a visa and speak at the United Nations? What kind of message do you think that gives them? It shows nothing but weakness and cowardice. And the United Nations is just thoroughly corrupt. But Israel took care of business. This is why it is so important that the Jews have sovereignty in their ancestral homeland. This is what Zionism is. No one will protect us if we don't do it ourselves. In fact, we've seen quite the opposite, that people will try and stop us from protecting ourselves. Well, this is what we mean when we say never again. Hamas attacked us. We're 1 year down the track. They're practically gone. There's a few remnants left, but Hamas is practically finished. Hezbollah shelling us for 12 months, almost, but consistently just menacing us with their missiles and their rhetoric. And eventually, when Israel took action, it took about a week and they're gone. This is what never again looks like. All right, let's go have a beautiful weekend, stepping into a new era where hopefully we'll finally start to sow the seeds of a peaceful and harmonious future, and certainly one with more security for the Israeli people. Am Yisrael Chai.